Welcome back to another video in our series on 2D game basics. In this video we're going to start looking at adding in some enemy AI to our objects here in our scene. So I have a spider that I've brought in here. This is my enemy spider, and we're going to be working with him a little bit to give him some basic AI behaviors. The one we're going to focus on in this video is giving him the ability to patrol between different points in a room or throughout our level. So enemy AI patrolling is going to be kind of the focus for this one. So to start out, we're going to need to know where we want him to patrol around. So he needs some waypoints that he can follow through our level. So that he can know where he's supposed to go, and when he reaches there, where he should go next. So one of the easy ways to do this would be just to use some empty game objects to mark those positions. So I'm going to move him down just a little bit to get him out of the way. And let's go and create, in our hierarchy here, let's create an empty game object. Let's just call this a patrol point. And we'll just call this patrol point 1. So we're going to have a couple of these in here. And let's make sure that this patrol point here is 0 on the Z. Okay, so that he adds up all right. So he's going to be 0 on the Z. And then if you click right here on this little colored cube, you can select an icon. So when we're using empty game objects, just so we can see where they are in the scene view, it's always good to kind of put a little icon on here. So let's give maybe a red label here that will display its name. So you can see here now that it says patrol point 1. If we click that, we have access to our game object, and then it's really easy to kind of just drag that over where we want it to be. So the center point here is the point that is going to be listed in our transform, and that's the point that we want our enemy to reach. So let's kind of think about how big he is, and maybe we'll put him right here. Okay, matter of fact, let's make it easy on ourselves and make that a 3.5, so we got a nice easy number to remember. Alright, so now we've got one patrol point. Maybe we want him to patrol between this point and maybe this point over here. So now all I have to do is select that first patrol point and duplicate it. You can do that by doing Control D, or you can right click and say duplicate here, and that will give us another patrol point. Let's go ahead and rename this as patrol point 2, and then I can just drag that off of patrol point 1 and drop that over here. So maybe he's going to go from here to here, and then just back and forth between the two. And of course we can put in more of these patrol points. Maybe we'll do one more. Again, just duplicate this one here. Let's change its name to patrol point 3, and then we can drag this one off. So maybe we'll have him patrol down towards the center here of the level, and something like that. So we want him to go from here to here to here, back to the beginning again here. Alright, so we've got our 3 patrol points all set up. Now, it's always a good idea to hide these points inside of another game object so your hierarchy doesn't get too cluttered. So let's make one more empty. We'll call this patrol points, and then we want to make sure this is all zeroed out. So if we hit the gear here, we can go to reset. Let's make sure everything's zeroed out so this is exactly lined up with the coordinates of our game world. And then we can grab our 3 patrol points here and drag them into this one here. You notice they did not change position on my map. And now I can tuck those away inside of this empty game object so that they're not cluttering up my hierarchy. Okay, so I've got my patrol points set up. Now the patrol points are basically just there to hold a place in the game world. Okay, so these coordinates here. And now I'll be able to make my enemy, my spider here, move between them. Alright, so let's start making a script for our spider. So go to our scripts folder here, and let's make a new C# script, and we will call this SpiderAI. And let's open that up in MonoDevelop. Here's our script, SpiderAI, and the first thing we need to do is we need SpiderAI to know what his patrol points are. So we're going to make an array in here of patrol points that we can then drag into the spider. And really, from the patrol points, we really just need to know the positions that they're at. So that's part of the transform. So we're going to make a transform variable to hold those. So we're going to say transform, and to make it an array, we do our square brackets there. And we'll give this a name. We'll call this patrol points. There we are. And then we can, let's also make sure we make this public, because then we can set these up out in the inspector. So now we have a place for the spider to store his patrol points that he needs to patrol in between. Let's go back out to Unity and assign those. Here's my enemy spider. Let's give him the SpiderAI script that we made. And here's the patrol points. And what we can do is we can actually just select all three of these and drag them. Oops, okay. Control Z. Alright, let me show you a little shortcut here. So basically what we can do here now is we can set this to size 3, and then we can drag these patrol points in. So patrol point 1 is the first one we want them to go to, and then 2, and then 3. So we're just going to go ahead and drag those patrol points in there, and now they're going to be stored in his script, ready to go. Okay, and then probably to make life easier for us, let's go ahead and position our spider so that he's basically at patrol point 1 right now. So patrol point 1 was at -3.3 and then a 3.5. So let's make sure our spider, matter of fact, let's make this easier. Let's make that at 0, 3.5. So then we can just move our spider to 0, 3.5. And then he'll be right exactly in the same spot. We don't necessarily have to do that. We could just tell him to move there first and make sure that that's where he's at. But we can just start him out there if we want to. Okay, so now we have our patrol points and our spider kind of lined up, ready to go. Alright, and next what we're wanting to do then is get our spider moving. Okay, so we always want him to move forward. This is his front-facing arc here. He's drawn so that his head is along the y-axis. So we want him to move along his y-axis in a straight line, and then we're going to move him towards the next patrol point, and when he hits that, we're going to have him turn. But let's get him moving here first. So back into the script. So in his update function, we're just going to move him with a transform.translate command. So transform.translate, and we want him to move along his y-axis only. So we're just going to tell him move vector 3 dot, let's see, if we do vector 3, it would be dot up. Vector 3 dot up is the shortcut. Right here you can see in the code completion hints here, shorthand for writing a vector 3 that has 0, 1, 0. So this would be 0x, positive 1 on the y, and 0 on the z. Since he is actually lined up along his y-axis, that should cause him to move along that. So we'll double check that. And let's take this movement then times time dot delta time. So it chops it up over a second's worth of time. And then let's take this times whatever speed we want him to move. We'll make a variable called speed. We'll put that up here, public speed. Got to give it the type, public float speed, like that. And then we can set a speed out in the inspector as well. Alright, so let's just see if we can actually get him to move forward in the direction he's facing with a transform.translate. That's kind of step 1. Go back out here into our script, into Unity. Let's give him a speed, something like a 5, so he's not too fast in here. Let's hit play and see if he actually moves along his y-axis here. And there he goes. Okay, so he's just scooting off, and that's pretty fast actually. Let's try a 2. Alright, that might still be too fast, but good enough for now. Alright, so now he's just moving straight along his y-axis, and that's good. So now we've got him moving. So the next thing we want to do is after he moves, we want to check to see if he has arrived at his patrol point. Okay, so he's going to move. We're going to check to see if he's at his patrol point, and then we are going to figure out if he has where his next patrol point is, and get him rotated to face it so that he can just start moving in that direction. Okay, so back to our script. So after we move our player with the transform.translate, we're going to need to have a way of checking to see if he's actually reached his patrol point. So we're going to put a little note here. We're going to check to see if we have reached the patrol point. Alright, in order to do that, we're going to have to know which patrol point he's currently moving towards. So we have a little bit of setup to do up here at the top. So we're going to need a couple of variables. We're going to need a transform variable that's going to hold our current patrol point, so we can keep track of where he's supposed to be going. We're also going to need to know where in our list of patrol points we are. So what index number are we currently at in our array? So let's make an integer number here, or an integer variable here, and we'll call this current patrol index. So this will be our current patrol index number in our script. Okay, so we need those two variables. And the start function then, when the game starts, we want our enemy to start with his first patrol point in his array. So we're going to go ahead and set our current patrol index to 0. That's going to be the first item in our array. Remember, index numbers start at 0, so that'll get me the first patrol point. Then we can set our current patrol point to be equal to our patrol points, our array, and we can tell it to grab the one that's at the current patrol index number. Now that we have our variables all set up and we've initialized them up here at the top, so we have our first patrol point as our current one, what we're going to do every frame in our update function is we will move, and then we'll check to see if we've reached our current patrol point. So we're going to have to do a couple instructions here. First thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have to figure out how far away we are from our patrol point, because when we get close enough to it, we're going to want to stop and load up the next one. So what we're going to do here is we're going to ask a question. We're going to say if vector3 dot distance, this is a built-in Unity function that will return the distance in Unity units as a float number. So we give it our current position. So we're going to give it our transform dot position. This is where we are in the XYZ axis. And then we're going to give it where we want to go. And where we're trying to go to is that current patrol point. So let's put in current patrol point. This is a transform. I need the position from it. So we're going to say dot position. Right, and that will give me a number back. Okay. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to compare what we get. We're going to say, is that less than, and we're going to say a 0.1. Okay, so if we're within 0.1 units of our patrol point, we're going to say that's close enough, we've arrived, and we're going to go ahead and move to our next one. So if this is true, then we have reached the patrol point. So we're there. And then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to load up our next patrol point so we can move towards that. Okay, so we reached the patrol point. We're going to get the next one. so that we can keep on going. So we're going to have to do a little check here because we're using an array. Let's go out here in the Unity and look at this. On our spider, he's got an array of patrol points. You've got patrol points at index 0, 1, and 2. So we have to make sure that we don't that we know where we are in the list and that we don't try to ask for something that's not in the list. So for instance, if we're already at 2, there is no 3. So if we're at 2, we want to make sure we go back to 0. So he'll just loop around through these points. But if he hasn't reached the end, we just want to go to the next one. So if he's at 1, for instance, we'll just want to make him go to 2, the one at index 2 next. So we have to do a little checking here to make sure that we load the right patrol point. So we're going to do a test here. We're going to say if our current patrol index plus 1. So we're going to look in 1 into the future. Right now, for instance, when this first starts, it'll be 0. So this would be current patrol index would be 0. 0 plus 1 would be 1. Okay, so we're kind of just looking one patrol point into the future. We're going to ask if that is less than our patrol points, our arrays, length. Okay, if it is, then we have another patrol point. So again, another thing about arrays, let's take a look at this again. The length of the array is its size. How many items are in it? It's got a size of 3. So we want to make sure that if we look at, let's say we're at element 1 and we add 1 to it, 2. Well, 2 is less than 3, so we know there's a 2. If we were currently at 2 and we added 1, we'd have 3. 3 is not less than 3, so we would know that we're off the end. We've reached the end of our array. It's time to go back to the beginning. That's what we're testing here. Alright, so if this is true, then we have not reached the end. So what we're going to do with our current patrol index is just add 1 to it. We're going to go ahead and say, okay, let's load the next one in. So current patrol index plus plus. That'll add 1 to my patrol index and we'll be ready to go. Okay, if we have reached the end, so if we add 1 to our current patrol index and it's not less than the patrol points dot length, then we know we're at the end. There is no more. We want to go back to the beginning. So we're going to go ahead and make our current patrol index equal to 0, which will cause us to go back to the beginning. So after we've checked all this, so let's put another little note in here. We're going to check to see if we have any more patrol points. Okay, and we're going to make sure that we get the right one. We can say if not, go back to the beginning. Okay, that's what all this does. After we've done all this, and we know we have the right patrol index number loaded up, then we can use that to actually get our next patrol point. So then we can set current patrol point equal to our patrol points at the current patrol index. So this is how we're going to keep loading, make sure we get the next one on the list, and if we've hit the end of the list and we're at our last patrol point, we're just going to go back to the beginning and just loop back around again. Okay, so that allows us to load up the next one. Now that we've got a patrol point, we want to make sure that we are moving towards that patrol point. So now we're going to turn to face the current patrol point so that when we move forward, we're going to be moving towards it. Okay, so we're going to have to do a little bit of math here to get this. First thing we have to do is we have to establish the vector between our current position and the position of the patrol point. So there's a built-in function here, and we're actually going to just make a vector3 variable to hold the answer to this. So we're going to call this patrol point direction, and we're going to set that equal to our current patrol point dot position, so it's XYZ coordinates minus our current position, transform dot position. What this will do is this will give us an XYZ amount that contains the vector between us and the next patrol point that we're trying to move to. So we're going to find out which direction is it from us. It's going to be like drawing an arrow from us to the one that's there, using some math here. So this will be the vector that contains. So we're figuring out which direction it is from us. Once we've done that, we're going to do a little math here to get the angle that we have to rotate to match so that we're facing it. So we're going to make a float variable here called angle. We're going to use a built-in math function here. Mathf gets our math functions. What we want is a tangent function. So there's one here called a tan2, which will give us an angle in radians between to point us where we want to go. Okay, so we feed into that our patrol point direction. That's the direction we want to be facing. We got to get it to y, so we say dot y, and we have to feed in also the x for that. So we're going to do comma patrol point direction dot x, and then that will return to us a amount of radians that will point us to the angle we need to be facing. Now, we don't use radians in here. What we want to do is get this to degrees. So we're going to take this times another function, mathf, and this is called rad2degree. This will convert radians to degrees. So basically we take our radians, so this gives us back radians. We take it times this function here, and that will convert the radians to degrees. Okay, and then we have to, because our spider is facing down the y-axis instead of the x-axis for his forward direction, we actually have to do a little bit of an adjustment to our degrees. We have to actually rotate him 90 degrees, a minus 90 degrees here to make a match up. So that's a little bit of math there. Fortunately, the computer does that for us. We just have to know which ones to do. So that gives me the angle in degrees, and then offset for the way we're facing so that we know exactly which way we need to be facing to move to the next one. So now that we have the angle in degrees offset for our heading of our player, how he's drawn, we need to figure out how to get that into what Unity calls quaternions. Quaternions is Unity's way that it does rotations. It doesn't use degrees or radians. It uses something called a quaternion. So we're going to make a quaternion. We'll just call it Q, and we're going to make that equal to quaternion dot angle axis. It's going to create a rotation for us, which rotates us around a particular axis. Okay, and the axis that we're going to use here. Well, first we give it the angle. So that's what we just figured out, the angle in degrees. And then we're going to tell it vector3 dot forward. Vector3 dot forward is the vector that's facing down the blue line in your scene view. It's the z-axis, and that's why we're having to offset 90 degrees up here, because we're not pointing down the z-axis, we're actually pointing down the y-axis, but that's just how we kind of make the math work out. So this is going to give us the quaternion that we need, and then now that we have that, we can set our transform dot rotation to be equal to this. Now we do have to do a little bit more math here, because now we have to rotate towards that, and we could add in something here where it turns over time, but we're just going to kind of make him snap to his new heading right now. So we're going to use another built-in function, quaternion dot rotate towards, and then we got to feed it in the rotation, the from rotation. So where are we currently facing, and then the one that we want to be facing. So we're currently facing, we can get that from going to our transform dot rotation. And then we need to give it the 2. Well, the 2 rotation is this Q one that I just figured out, because I gave it the angle I want to be facing, told it which vector I want to be facing that way, and it computed that for us. So I'm going to give it Q, and then we have to tell it the max degrees it can change in any one frame. So in this case, I'm going to let him turn as far as 180 degrees. So we'll put 180 degrees in here. and that will allow him to turn that much at one time, and that will get us turning right away. We're going to snap around to that new direction so that the next time we move, the next update function, when we come back up here and transform.translate, we'll actually start moving towards the next one. So I know this is a lot of complicated code and math here. Sometimes when you're learning, you just kind of find what works and you copy it in, and every time you use this, you dig a little deeper into it. You can go into the Unity scripting reference guide and you can look up all these functions and see the math that they do and dig real deep into it if you enjoy digging into the math of that. But basically, again, what we're doing here is we're figuring out, we can put some notes on here. We are finding here the direction vector that points to the patrol point. After finding the vector direction that points to our patrol point, then this next line, what that did was it figured out in degrees what our angle is between where we currently are facing and where we want to be facing. Figure out the rotation in degrees that we need to turn towards. All right, that's what that did. Here then we built the rotation. So we made the rotation that we need to face, and then in this next one we apply it. So let's see, apply the rotation to our transform so that we're actually facing the waypoint. Okay, so let's see if I've got everything in here that I need. I think I'm probably missing, yep, I'm missing a closing bracket here so that we match that up with our update. So this should be good. Let's go ahead and save this, and let's go out into Unity and see if all this typing I did actually had any kind of an effect here. So I've got my spider, he's got his AI script, he's got his patrol points. When we hit play here, he should move between the patrol points. So I moved him down off the first patrol point a little bit. Remember that first patrol point is right here in our scene view, so he's down here, so he should move up here, then turn and go here, and then turn and go down here. Let's see if I was successful in doing this right. So there he goes. Okay, he hit the first patrol point, now he's moving to the next patrol point. When he hits that, he's going to turn to go down to the third patrol point, and when he hits the end, he should go back to the beginning. Let's see if that happens. There we go. So now he's going back to the first one again. So that is how we can do a real simple patrol route for our AI to move through. So you can put as many of these points as you want through your game. You just have to, in the way we're doing this, this is not a very smart AI. Okay, it's going to move straight lines. So if I put an obstacle in his way like a wall and I had a collider on him, he would get stuck. So you do have to be careful to drop these patrol points in so that he can get to it in a straight line. So that's our video on making an enemy patrol around through different patrol points. I hope you find it helpful. If you have any questions, as always, please ask in the comments. I'd be happy to help. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.